Good evening. My name is Tim Culp, and I'm the President and CEO of the Texas City La Marque Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of the Texas City La Marque Chamber of Commerce, we want to welcome you this evening to our Political Candidates Forum, brought to you by the Texas City La Marque Chamber of Commerce and I-45 Now. Again, thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for taking the time to learn about the candidates that are seeking your vote in the La Marque City Council race. At this time, I'm going to turn the microphone over to TJ Alt, who will be monitoring our comments for this evening.
Thank you, Tim, and welcome everyone who's watching us here. We are live from the Texas City La Marque Chamber of Commerce office. Our first of two forums tonight in this area. As Tim said, this is the La Marque City Council. Then just a little after 6 o'clock, we will start up with the candidates running for College of the Mainland Board of Trustees. First up, let's go ahead and introduce our candidates who are with us here tonight. We're going to start on our left. As you look at things on your camera, running for District B, the incumbent, Joe Compian, and his challenger, Justin McDonald.
Thank you.
Running in District D, Cassandra Lafferty.
Thank you for having me.
And her challenger, James Ross.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so candidates, you each have, well, we're sharing 3 mics between the 4 of you here, and we're going to be going through this as the rules have always held out with I-45 Now. We don't put you on a clock per se when we're asking you questions and getting your answers, but we do ask you to keep it under 2 minutes if you can. Stay on topic so we can get through this. We do have, and I appreciate particularly Councilman Compian for coming in, but obviously we all want to get to the meeting as well tonight that starts at 6 o'clock. So a little poor timing on our part for that. That's my apologies. So before we started up this event, we had decided in the order certain things would go. And in this case, only the drawing or the random number selection we did would decide who would go first, second, third, or fourth at the end. And this case, the first, second, third, and fourth goes with how we start with our first question. So, Joe, you're going to be getting this first. And it's one that's always on the minds of folks in La Marque, and it is infrastructure, everything from roads to the sewer, and as well as, you know, there's a big grant that came in to take care of manhole covers. What are the areas that are doing better in La Marque on infrastructure, but what areas need to get taken care of, and how, if you're reelected, would you make sure that's funded?
Good question, TJ.
And get you closer to the mic, though. Obviously.
Closer?
Yes.
Is that better?
Yes, sir.
In fact, infrastructure was one of the 3 priorities that I ran on the first time. And I'm seeking re-election for this position only for that one additional term that I committed to. So, but infrastructure is something that I hope to go ahead and continue the effort that we've already started. In addition, I can't take any credit for the process of applying for the GLO grants. That was pre my service on council, but only because it was in the middle of COVID and the elections were delayed by 6 months. So the normal term that I had, which would have been in May, the election, in fact, was November.
Can I ask you to get on to the topic we asked about,
so
please?
November. So having said that, that was actually one of my focuses, because being the, I hate to use the term the senior, but being a resident of La Marque now for 60 years, I remember and I know our challenges that we've had with water and sewer. Our pipes are bad. And I also remember, and history, and TJ, you've been reporting on this in the past, in your past life too, we were losing 60% of the water within our pipes. So one of my biggest efforts was to try to get council to focus on that one area. And with number 1, let's come up with a realistic way to prevent and avoid losses on our water system and start repairing them. And we did that. We accomplished that. Working with many of the individuals here on this table, took input from them, and we came up with a reasonable step-up program just to fund our utility enterprise fund. That's number 1. But number 2, we took the first effort to fund and start the repairs in the first district, which we identified with the greatest water loss and sewer. So let's continue that. And in my role now with the Houston Galveston Area Council of Governments, we can go out and seek additional funding to continue that particular effort.
Gotcha. Justin, we'll go ahead and go on over to you now. And let's go ahead and take the mics off the stands because it's blocking the faces here when it just sits there. So you can just hold it and share it there. But Justin, same question to you here now is, if you're elected, what's going to be your priorities when it comes to the infrastructure in Lamarque? And we're focusing only here on streets and sewer there in storm drainage.
Yeah, so I don't.
Can you bring the mic a little bit closer to you there? There you go.
I don't necessarily have any different priorities than Joe. Everybody understands what the priorities are and they don't change, right? It's just a matter of how you're going to implement the work to make the biggest bang for your buck, right? And how you're going to get it done cost effectively, how you're going to get it done in the right time with the right grants, right? Because they have limitations and you have to identify getting your point. Start at the right point. All you do is back up the rest of the system. So that plan I've been asking about for over a year, and I haven't been able to get that plan from anybody at the city. So part of that is just, let's sit down and make sure the plan works. Let's make sure the constituents know what the plan is and that they understand. I've been in construction for 20 something years. I know how to design, build almost anything. So that's when it comes to roads, infrastructure, I'm uniquely qualified to oversee those types of engineering and implementation, construction contracts, subcontracts, and budgets. Been doing it for a while.
Let's move on now to the candidates from District 3. On the same question here, and Cassandra, same question to you regarding infrastructure in the city of Lamarque.
So I have not made it. I started walking my community. I started walking District D so I can start to speak about what is closest to me that I've made it so far. And one of the main issues would be Laurel. Laurel is very beautiful. It got some beautiful bricks in front of the Make Lamarque Beautiful Center. But then just down the road, we've got portions of it that have gravel that people are literally pulling to the other side of the road because they don't want to flick rocks on their cars and things like that. We have a lot of I've spoken about at city council meetings that they were supposed to address, and those are still there. There's still wet land, wet soil. You can see that the leaks are there. So we have a lot of issues and a lot of infrastructure that needs to be repaired. Like you said, the sewer caps that we are still waiting for also.
Now let's go on over to the other candidate in District D. That's James Ross. And James, the same question to you, sir.
So as I've traveled through District D, driving around, making sure I know my area, I've noticed, excuse me, the sewers are finally getting dug out in District D. I've seen that. I've watched the companies out there. There are several roads, especially back behind Cedar, going out towards Maple and a lot of the tree streets on that side of Highway 3 that need to be addressed and looked at. And then our overall water, whether it's sewer and our delivery systems, need to be fixed in D. But I know that with the grant that's coming in, that's one of the first areas to be fixed right now, is right there in District D.
And let me stay with you on this, and we're going to go back down the way, staying on infrastructure. What are some areas that are just citywide, not necessarily district specific, that you need, whether it's FM 1765 to work with the state on, or any other major thoroughfare? Obviously, I know everyone's going to mention I-45, so let's keep that out because that's a haunted mess as it begins with. We're going to get to that. That's actually one of the topics we'll get here. But let me ask you, what kind of a main thoroughfares, not specifically in your district, do you want to see addressed?
Not specifically in my district. I would like to see I want to say it's the area back behind Delaney Cove. There are stoplights there, there are blinking lights there, and there are stop signs there. But there are, depending on what time of day depending on what time of day you go through that area, somebody's going to be going 100 miles an hour. And it is that area back between Lamarque and Hitchcock area is just a speed hazard most of the time that I've been through there.
Cassandra, same question to you. What's something that's not necessarily in the district you're running for that's a main thoroughfare? It could be in your district, but just what you would look at as also as being such a city priority, overall city priority infrastructure wise.
I think a lot of the streets over on the other side, where they would be more considered towards West Texas City, but on this side of 1765, you've got like Edgar and all of those streets near Food Right. A lot of those streets need some repairs done. Those streets are just falling apart, and so I think that would be out of my district. I think the other side, more towards 1765, but more towards. Sorry, I'm trying to think of where that would be at. Going towards the plant area.
Gotcha. So heading
So
east.
that whole side, not only those streets, but there's a lot going on in those buildings that need to be repaired or tore down. It's a really bad eyesore, and so vagrants and things live in there. And so I think that's one of the top priorities that need to be focused on.
Same question to you, Mr. McDonald, on the question on infrastructure may not necessarily be in District B, but you think would impact the city overall.
I've said it several times at several city meetings and asked certain individuals at the city employment, whoever manages that, I won't say names, but I can't identify one or two or three that I would say were priorities. It has to be a holistic view of what's going on with your sanitary, your sewer, your underground utilities, and let's not pave a road before we fix what's underneath it. That's my biggest thing. And again, that's just something I think I uniquely can bring some clarity to the table in overall planning and describing those plans and issues to the constituents. They may not be happy with the plan we put together, but they need to understand why.
Yeah. And he brings up a good point, Councilman Compian, is that when there was a time when work got done and basically there was bigger problems underneath and a road got laid and the sewer underneath cracked and it caused bigger problems. But talk about those priorities bigger than that. And we're going to give a chance, if you would, kind of follow up on Justin's comment about, project management, but also what other areas are priorities. And then we're going to go back down the line.
Very quick, the project management, I've said from the dais at our council meetings, right, is that we need to make sure that we deal with our work that needs to be done underneath the street before we continue with the street paving. That wasn't done with the bond money that was passed in 2017. By the way, I had to push to get the work done on the 2017 bond because Lamarque was the last city to get the street work done, and it was just repaving. But the issue for me, I think, in terms of the whole city, and I agree with what everybody said, identified. I think we still have a problem with our street lights. That's the number one thing that I get from people is that District D areas that are completely dark over there by the former inner city school. I see areas that are really dark. We're on the west side, we have some areas as well too. I try to make it a regular practice to go around driving around at night. I've even had the police called on me because I'm out there, but I'm checking in on street lights. It's a very confusing, and I've been encouraging council where they're working on, I should say staff, there's supposed to be a map that will, as to Justin's point, clearly designate the line of what's the responsibility of Texas New Mexico Power and what's CenterPoint's responsibilities. We don't even know that. And so I would say let's continue with everything that's been talked about, but add street lights to that.
And let me, sorry, turn myself off there. Yeah, there we go. Now we go. You think I'd learn how to, but Justin, let me come back to you on that because you brought up the topic. It's a good one of project management. Obviously, council members can't get involved in that day to day, but what could the city do better on those project management so that the left hand knows what the right hand's doing, and when there's something that's a bigger problem, to make sure that get addressed before you make it worse.
So as far as a role on city council and working with the city, I think there just needs to be maybe a little more oversight. I don't know how much y'all do behind the scenes. I'm not there, Joe. So I can't speak to exactly the level of effort that's been put into it. But I think that before plans are put in motion, they need to be publicized, they need to be discussed with the community. And that all needs to be understood. And like I said, not everybody's gonna be happy because they're not gonna get done first. But the city needs to see that that level of planning is being done at the city level and being oversight by the city council, with the help of the city manager and mayors, and put in front of everybody before the ball's kicked.
Gotcha.
See what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Cassandra, same question to you.
I think one of the big issues is that we have all of these subcommittees and things going on right now that it seems like we have too many chiefs and not enough Indians. We have a lot of people are putting in input, but I don't see a lot of things getting done. I don't see a lot of things coming up on the city council ballots for us as the citizens to really go in and look at and see a plan. They talk about a plan, but we don't really visually get to see it actually going before they're like, oh, it's approved. A lot of times that us as citizens, we have no idea what's going on.
And I need to clarify, you said ballots, but you mean like an agenda packet
Agenda.
or what's on the agenda? Okay, I just want to make sure I understand. Yeah, you're not talking about voting on something, but at least know more information before council.
Even on voting on something, we kind of go in blindsided. Even when we vote with ballots, we barely get the information right before the election comes out. And so sometimes we don't have enough time to even research what's really going on behind the scenes. So I think that that's one of the major issues when it comes down to planning and what's going on is our citizens don't know.
Gotcha.
So we can't vote on it.
James, same question to you, sir.
So with project management, I think as it's been discussed, there are way too many chiefs and not enough Indians, and there's not enough documentation for a regular citizen to go and look at a timeline of events to get something fixed. When I did a submarine refit in 30 days, we had to coordinate with maneuvering on what was going to happen with the engine room with hydraulics so that we could cycle muzzle hatches later on during the refit. That way everybody knew what was going to happen. And the old saying, how do you eat the elephant? One bite at a time. If the citizens in Lamarque understood what each bite was as we were getting there to fix it, it would make the city better overall, and the transparency of what city council and public works and everybody is trying to do that much better for everybody involved.
Let me, because it's been brought up many times in this, I'll start with you on this one, James. Is that a question of a capital improvement project list or something like that? I think we're hearing, and Joe, you can clarify this when we get down to you, but is that needs something that's easily, readily available, go find and say, here's what's on the list for the next 5 years.
Yes.
Are you not finding that?
No, you can find bits and pieces, but it's not in one place. So you can find that we're working on sewer lines, and then you'll go somewhere else and they're working on a road. Put it all together so that we can see. We'll use Laurel as an example. We're fixing the sewer here, then we're coming back and paving it. That way the citizens understand what the steps are to get to that point, period. Nobody can fight about it.
And I think we're going to see agreement down here in the line, but give you a chance to answer that.
I completely agree with that. Letting the citizens know, giving us somewhere to see that information, because sometimes there's roads being repaired and a citizen on that block doesn't even know that it's coming. So that would give us a time to prepare for that, to know what's going on in our community. That's definitely one of the biggest things, is just us knowing. We don't know until the last minute. And then when we do find out, we don't have enough information to make a clear decision, and we're kind of just thrown it and we make a decision on the whim because we don't have enough information to get it. And I agree with him. It's not all in one place. You have to go to so many different council meetings and see, oh, they talked about this. Oh, they talked about this. Having it in one place as a citizen, I think, would be a great thing.
Justin, same question to you on that topic.
Something tells me we pretty much already discussed this, but
Yeah, no, and I understand. Yeah, and if you don't want to, I just want to say, if you want to
I wanna-
elaborate on what you said.
I want to take it to the next level, which is, as anybody knows, running a business or city or a project, depending on what level you're at, unless you have the big plan that I've told you that we need to analyze, you can't figure out what your budgets are. You cannot go out for bid until you know what your estimate's going to be. Okay, so all those things tie into the big project picture. Okay, if I don't know what we're building, I can't get a bid on it. If I can't get a bid on it, I don't have a budget. So, as example, not anything permanent. One new firehouse. All right, we need 40 million. Well, okay, where's your design? How do you know you need 40 million? Well, what are we going to need for our roads? What are we going to need for our infrastructure, underground water, utilities, lighting, right? Without the big picture and without presenting the big picture, you can't come up with a scope or a budget. So those are the things that I feel need to be addressed a little bit better by the city and put forward for the residents of the city to understand where our money's going, what you want taxes for, why you want to add taxes or decrease taxes if that's the case. But without the big picture, you can't speak to any of those things.
Joe, let me ask, is there a CIP plan, a capital improvement project plan out there that's in one central place for someone to look at?
There is a capital improvement plan because I brought it up on my turn. Actually, there's a financial budgeting process. I was looking for a 5-year plan. We also have a parks conceptual plan.
Yeah, let's stay on the CIP plan right now because
and
we're going to
capital
talk about.
improvement as well too. I need to address this. I agree with everything. Now, these are the dynamics of working in a council, though. That's something that I had to figure out and listening. I said I would listen for 6 months, and everybody needs to do that because there's a fine line. I follow the law. I do not give any, and I've said it up there. I go to the city manager with my concerns. I do not get myself involved in telling the public works person this, other than reporting a leak or this, and I want some action. So I welcome your additional.
Yeah, but the
outlay.
actual question is there a capital improvement plan? Is there a place to actually see the whole list?
There is actually.
Where is it?
Activities came out in the Marque economic development booklet that just came out. They were all listed and the status of all the projects were in there.
The economic development side of things.
On that side, it was.
But that's not necessarily all the capital improvements that are taking place.
And they are. We need to improve that. I've said that. We do a terrible job of communicating. I've said that up there.
Well, let me ask that because this goes into our open government question, which is going to be later. But is the rest of council? You're on there now. Is the rest of council blocking?
No, it's
making
not
a
a question
list?
of blocking. Is that council is not a PR person. I finally said this.
Yeah, hang on. I have to interrupt you on here. Yes, they're not, but they have the responsibility of telling the public what's going on. That actually is in the law. You don't need a PR person to do that. What is it to put on a vote that says? Because you've heard from 3 candidates here, and we've heard from other people. They really don't know. Let's forget about meetings.
Yeah.
There's just this one subject: capital improvement projects. You go to League City. There's an actual section on their website. You can go and see the projects, timeline, what years, everything. Why doesn't Lamarck have that?
I agree with you. I've said that.
No, you can agree with me. Why doesn't it have it? That's the question.
That it takes action by the entire council, majority of council members, to give that guidance. That has not happened.
Has it been
I
asked
pushed-
for?
I've asked for it. I ask for it every time of many meetings. I ask for it. It doesn't have a consensus there in order to say that we need this.
There's not a consensus. I have to question this because there's not a consensus on council to reveal what the plan is.
No.
Because that's a specific question I'm asking.
No, you talked about putting together the plan. The plan is there. There's not a consensus in terms of what the plan should be. That's not
Okay, that's why we want to clarify because my question was not that.
Right?
So
What the plan should be.
the plan is not really a plan right now.
It is a conceptual. I call it conceptual. It's not like the League City there. I call it conceptual. That's why the parks plan is conceptual. You're bringing new ways of doing business to this city because that's not how things have been done. We talk about how things are done in Lamarque. That's our challenge, is that in the past, individual council persons or the mayor would give their own opinion as to a project to staff. And suddenly it's a different direction the project is going on. That's why I keep saying, I follow the charter. We go to the city manager. That's sometimes not shared by some of either this council or the previous council that was part of it.
And that seems to be what's causing the confusion here. We both had Cassandra and James mention about, I said too many cooks in the kitchen is the term I use on them, but the same basis here. Which goes to, all right, I'll start with you on this one, Joe, since we're on down there. If you had a magic wand and could get a consensus right now on getting better communication out there, what's the first thing you take care of if you're elected? And I'm giving you a magic wand.
You're giving me, there's like.
I know it's not on the ballot, but I'm going to give it to you.
There's an old comedian, George Wallace, said, if I could be president, right? Well, I think, first of all, we have to instill in all of our staff, a real work ethic. I'm going to say that very, very bluntly there. I'm not saying that they're doing a bad job. I'm just saying we can all do a better job. And I'm including council in that area, on that side. We seem to have accepted this attitude of, well, I don't want to take the complaints, perhaps. And so this is for me something that I keep pushing. And we also have to hold both the city manager and by way of the city manager, our employees accountable. If work is not getting done in terms of code enforcement or the repairs to the streets or things of that nature, I, for one, am going to be holding the city manager responsible for the work not being done. That's the proper method.
Have you talked to City Manager Caesar about any of these issues?
Yes, sir. He knows. We've talked about it. He's involved. In no other city could you have a young man as dedicated as Mr. Garcia come in after a tax rollback election, hit with a budget that has to be slashed to deal with the priorities that the citizens of Lamarque are looking for. And he's accomplished that, and then and more.
Well, accomplish some things maybe, but the big thing it sounds like, as you said, work ethic of the staff and that communication part. And this is going to be a horse we could keep beating after it's dead too, Justin. But let me go ahead and ask, because if anything, what I'm hearing about is communication issue coming from City Hall, coming from elected officials here, in just hearing what Joe had to say, and I'm sure I could hear it in your frustration earlier, is you could have all the town hall meetings you want, but you can't find out what's really happening. It's all disjointed in many ways. If I'm going to give you the same thing, I'm now taking the wand away from Joe, you've won, and I'm giving it to you. How do you make the improvements?
Without having been in the position, I can't tell you specifically how that would happen. I would have to dive into it and find out why our goals are so disjointed and not completely aligned as of yet. I think that's where you have to start to bring the overall project together. And I don't know if that's sit down with the employees and the council and members of the community to work through that in multiple coordination meetings where you bring the community and the council and the employees in and go through it. We did one exercise like that about a year and a half ago. I remember that. And I thought that was a very good start, but then we didn't go anywhere. And so a year and a half, we're in the same place. So I think that's what we got to fix first.
And some of that, I think, has been attributed to the turmoil that we've had, the turnover at the city manager's position, that has taken place, not only just on the permanent city manager's position, but the interim position. And, many people hold hats. Cassandra, I'm now going to give you the magic wand to you now. And how would you address it if you're elected and put on council?
So I can agree with Justin over here. A community event, I think, would be a great thing. I think something where we can come together. If the community doesn't want to come and just sit through a meeting, we've got our own things to do. We've got our own lives. We don't want to just come and sit through meetings. So I think community come where also maybe have somewhere where we can sit and talk. City council can sit and talk and actually listen. Actually go through with what they're saying. Actually go through with what we are submitting. That's where, and yes, holding the city accountable. There's been many times where you see workers just hanging around, are workers not doing what they're supposed to do, are coming in and taking very long to do something that should have not taken so long. So definitely holding people accountable, but that once again comes in with too many chiefs and not enough Indians, where there's not enough people actually monitoring what's going on in our city. Just saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, actually going out and getting it done. And if the city council has to go out and monitor these people, then that's what the city council is going to have to do.
Yeah, it gets to get a little sketchy area, but you can go watch what people are working on. Actually, James, let me get this from you here now. The same thing. Now you've got the magic wand coming on there, but I'm going to do a follow up on this. Go ahead.
So I personally have seen in Lamarque where they will do a workshop and actually get citizens out there to help come up with ideas. The water rate is a perfect example. We worked on that for months before we got to an end game on it. Is it perfect? No, but citizens actually were able to come there, speak with council, speak with the city manager, whoever else showed up, and we could throw ideas out, work with pen and pencil, and get the ideas done and over with. If we continue to do that, if we had a workshop with the citizens saying, hey, what's number one? We did a vote online, a survey online on what our most important things were. Now let's take the top three, throw them at a wall and say, okay, everybody in this room, let's pick number one. And we fight it out till we get to the end. And then we break our plan down to show how we're going to meet the end game at the end of it.
And I'm staying with you on this next question, and we'll go back around here. On that, many cities, large and small in this area, have these master plan meetings where folks go and, it's facilitated in the, you're putting down on those big pieces of paper, putting stickers by what you think are priorities, and the council makes a pledge. We're going to follow this, and we're going to set a plan. What would you do to make that happen? Because it sounds like there's been a lot of listening, supposedly, but no action after the listening on that. So what would you do? What would you encourage and like to see?
So when I did a refit, we used to take the rolls of graph paper that were 4 foot by about, I don't know, probably 20 feet, and we would split it up, and we could actually draw out from day 1 to day 30 what every plan was. And if there was something that gave a hiccup in it, we could erase it a little bit and move something over and slide it over. I think we need to have a board kind of similar to that in the middle of the passageway at the council chambers. That way everybody can walk up to it and see it. It's live. It's a breathing document that can be adjusted as needed, because we got 6 inches of rain and we need to adjust the schedule for this just a little bit, but we could put something in place to cover that gap at that time. I think that would help.
Cassandra, same question to you here now is, let's get off the schneid, let's get it fixed. How do you do that?
So you make your employees accountable. You make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to. You have the community come together. You ask for volunteers. You actually make them feel like they're needed, like they're wanted, and like they're making a difference. The city council, the current city council, like you said, they listen, but it seems like we're not being heard. So getting out there, getting with the community. Our community is divided by districts, and instead of worrying about each individual district, because I feel like the current city council worries more about their district, we need to worry about the Lamarque as a whole and see where these things are that need to be done the most. It may be a few things in District A and one thing in District D at this particular moment, instead of focusing on, we're going to do one thing for your district, one thing for this district, and one thing for this district. We need to just focus on it as a whole picture and focus on the worst things first, and making sure that that community knows, that neighborhood knows, and seeing if that neighborhood wants to get involved to do that. There are a lot of people who would love to get involved in this community, but they don't know where to even begin. And even if they reach out to their city council member, sometimes they don't get a response from them. Personally, I've been in that situation. And so we as citizens don't know where to begin to make a difference. So making a clear picture on where we can make a difference and what we can do, and making these things readily available for people, not last minute. We get a lot of last minute, here's the schedule, there's something coming out next week. We need to, as parents, as workers, we need to plan for these things. So if we know about them way ahead of time, we can take that time off and be more involved.
Staying with that, one of the things you were talking about keeping employees accountable. Obviously, as a council member, you have no authority to do so if you're elected. That's all up to the city manager holding him accountable. Should that be one of the measures on the city manager's evaluation every single time?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Let me go on over now to Justin on that question too. Is that, what's it going to take to get, everyone on the same page?
So you got a couple different aspects of this question, right? Obviously, I don't have the magic wand.
I gave it away to James, I think, last
A
time.
group of people in council and the city manager have that one share, right? So I'm not going to be able to go in there and say, you do this, you do that. That's not the way it works. But what you can do is say, Parks and Recreation is a different animal. When it comes to engineering, roads, infrastructure, you have to get a report from engineering, the city planning, TNMP, all the different entities that are involved, and say, this is the bottom. Everybody knows what flows downhill, right? Well, you got to start at the bottom and develop your plan to get back to the top. Because if you start at the top, all you do is back up everything behind it because it's got nowhere to go. So that's a different type of attack plan. You have to start there with the engineering. Give me the answer. Where does this start? Where does it end up? We build our plan back from the bottom up. When it comes to parks and recreations and street lights and things like that, we can prioritize those as a community or as a thought process. That's a different way of looking at those projects. So those are the two things. You can do the group sessions, you can do the group thinks and prioritize things on certain things, but when it comes to infrastructure, you can't attack it that way. You've got to get the engineering report. You've got to say, okay, this is where our worst sections are, but we've got to start here and work backwards. And I'm sorry if you don't like it, that it doesn't work. You do it opposite.
Joe, let me, Councilman, let me just ask you here, because I think you're hearing from the other candidates. I know you're hearing from the residents because you pointed it out there. You want to hold the city manager accountable on this. Cassandra brought up a good point. Everyone's in it, obviously as single member districts, which is different from most cities where they have at large. Your district has to be a part of it. You don't get elected or reelected if you don't take care of your district. But then there's those overall goals. But it seems to in other communities where they have the single member districts, they said, all right, everyone bring me your priority list from your district, your district, your district, your district, and then everybody sits and decides, with public input and the like. When is it going to be that get the page together and everyone decides to work together? Because what it sounds like you're telling me is that in a way, what I'm hearing from you say is you're the lone voice in the dark.
Unfortunately, sometimes I feel that way. And remember, a council is 5 unique individuals, and you have to have a consensus. I think that's the biggest frustration that people.
One of those individuals is elected at large.
And
I'm sorry, 6 total, but yeah, 6.
No,
with the
there's
mayor.
5.
Yeah, the mayor's
one at large.
Yeah,
right?
one at large for
And
4
one at
districts.
large. Now, let me interject something. As Mayor Pro Tem, and I'm honored for that, to hold that position as well too, is that people will call me directly regardless of what district they live in, and I follow through on their particular concerns. Now I don't give direction to the city manager on that. I contact the council person for that district and say I did receive a call on that.
Let me ask though, why do it that way? I mean, it's just adding one more. I mean, inform them, but why aren't you calling Caesar and saying, "Hey, I got this phone call. It's a concern in the city. That's his job." Why aren't you telling him that?
It's the dynamics of reality, and that's what I had to wake up to. What's the dynamics of this particular position? I don't give orders to anybody.
I'm not saying give orders.
Okay,
I mean, you're just passing along information.
I'm passing along information because I might need Cassandra's vote or
But you're playing politics there. I mean, the reality is that no. Hang on. Let me finish the question. The question is, why aren't you just taking it to the city manager? Hey, I got this call. Here it is. And you're also at the same time informing the person who represents that
Because
district. There's
the
nothing.
reality
There's
is-
nothing that stops you.
Reality is, TJ, I do that too many times, and I'm not going to get their support anymore. That's the reality. That's the reality in this community. That's the reality in other communities. You have
Actually,
to
it's not.
understand-
I mean,
TJ,
I've seen it
you're
in
not-
Texas City. It's not that way.
Well, it is. That's Texas City. I'm saying in this community, that's the reality.
Right. Well, no, you said other communities. I'd say maybe, but Texas City, everyone has a separate
On my
district.
TML conferences, TJ, and I'm a
Yeah,
representative.
but we're talking about
of the-
Lamar.
I'm a TJ, let me finish my thought now, okay? I'm a representative of the home rule.
Which is
small
not what we're
city,
discussing.
of which is where.
That,
these
that,
things
no,
come
I'm
up.
discussing
No,
Lamar.
TJ, I said that.
Joe, the rules are you discuss the topic that I've asked you.
And
So you have to, you agree to these rules.
I am.
So
And-
you
and
got to talk
so
about this.
We're
this
talking
city.
about Lamar. We're talking
Right.
about Lamar, okay? So it's a question of getting to know the members on council, what best works for them. Some council members have no problems at all. If you get a call from somebody, communicate that directly to the state manager. I take the input from my fellow council members.
So let me give you the chance to clarify this.
Yes.
You're telling me that even if it's just passing along information to the city manager, someone from another district calls you and says, I got this problem. You inform a council member and you inform the city manager. That other council member doesn't like the fact that you even told the city manager that?
There may be situations like that.
Is there?
There may be situations.
I didn't ask that. Has that happened?
I've answered your question. There may be a situation where that occurred. That's my answer. Okay?
No, the answer,
That's my
it's a
answer.
yes or no.
That's my answer. There may be situations where that has occurred.
Yeah, as I said, it's about direct answers here. And maybe that's it. Justin, let's go here because this is about open government, about that and that open communication. You heard this exchange here. And Joe, I'm sorry, I mean, but
I know.
the answers are coming out not to the question. So let me give you a chance here. You're hearing this from someone who sits on council now. So let's get into this. I know we're going to carry over a little bit. So how do you deal with what that situation you're hearing from Joe? Because you got to get consensus at some point. How do you do it? If it sounds like it's going to be combative one way or another, how do you do that if you get this office?
Okay, so the question that you asked seems to change a little bit.
Well, this is a separate question coming down the line. I asked him and it didn't happen. So I have to ask you a little bit differently of the same question is, if you get elected, what are you going to do to help get this unified thing? Because the question is about getting everyone on the same page.
So obviously sometimes you have to barter and trade. You know, this is government. Sometimes you have to give a little bit here to get a little bit there, and everybody at the table's got to do it, right? That's just how this process works. So you have to be willing to negotiate while you're still keeping the interest of your district at the first, and you have to be able to keep your conscience. At some point, you just got to say, "I'm not bartering with you no more. I'm done. My guys don't want this to happen, and I'm not getting that. I'm not getting that vote."
But I'll ask the same question that I asked you. I mean, you get a call from someone not in your district. You're a council member. Not only you represent your district, yes, but you also represent the city. How do you handle that situation?
That's a bit different situation, right? Because now you're talking about personalities on board. Okay, just like you would in any business structure, you get to know your peers and how you work, and you learn to work with those people accordingly. So I don't have an answer different than his. I think he's right on the head.
Yeah.
You've got to learn to work with people, and sometimes outing them is not the right way to work with them.
For sure. I mean, that's another one. Cassandra, same question to you.
So I have a completely different view on that. As I do represent my district, but I am not, it seems to me that other people are saying that because they're not my voter and I'm not going to get a vote for them, that their opinion may not count, or because I don't want to make someone a little bit upset. But at the end of the day, we are all trying to provide better for Lamar. So I should not, as a city council member, if somebody from District A comes and tells me something, I shouldn't have to worry about going and telling District A city council what's going on. I should be able to take that issue to the city manager with no repercussions, because at the end of the day, we are all working to make a better Lamar. And to make a better Lamar, I may have to step out of my district and help another district. But that doesn't mean that I don't care any less for my district. It means that I'm trying to make Lamar a better as a whole. And if the other city council members can't see that, that I see as a problem.
James, same question to you.
So I'm almost 100% with my competition here because I have literally had to reach out to other council people because my council person will not come back and reach to me. So I learned to reach out to other council people, the mayor and the city manager to get something done. So there are times where you're going to ruffle the feathers, and then there's times where you can pet them and make them feel good. But to unify Lamarque and get the job done, there are times you just got to barrel through and get it done.
Let's go ahead and jump from that to now the charter amendments on there. I'm not going to go through each one, that we'll be here all day. But is there any particular ones on the charter ballot that you oppose? And if so, which one and why?
The charter, I'm still looking at the charter amendments. Some of it's like trying to read a book through muddy water. The 90-day, I don't like the term 90 days operational fund. I wish they would put just a cap on what the reserve fund is. Like the state of Texas has a 25% cap on its state budget for its reserve fund. I think the city should do that and maintain that, not a 90 days, because 90 days can fluctuate depending on what happens. So if our total budget is 15 million, I understand that the 90 days is the same, but sometimes our summertime bills are higher than our winter bills. And I'd rather just see a cap at something like that.
And we should point out for that, that's actually Proposition 7 that's on the ballot. Cassandra, any particular amendment that's on there that you oppose and why?
So I'll be honest, much like everything else in Lamarque, we just started to see these amendments come publicly. So I would think one of the biggest one is the city manager being paid after if he is removed or how that is. I think it should be a little more detailed on why or how we should pay out these people. There's not enough information, I think, in that one for us to even make a clear decision on, much like a lot of these amendments, like James Ross has said, it's very complicated to read. And as a citizen, it's really hard to understand. It needs to be broke down a little bit better for us.
Which one of the props is that one? I'm sorry, I'm not seeing it here about the terms of that. I'm sorry, I must be skimming over it here. I just want to make sure people
That's
know.
what it is.
Because the first three deal with recalls. I'm sorry, this is number one. I got it now. This is proposition number one, include a definition of for cause. This is really defining what for cause means in firing the city manager. So that's proposition number one. Same question to you now, Justin.
Honestly, I don't like any of them. I wouldn't back any of them. The way they're written, okay? The way they're written, I wouldn't back any of them. There's one that I would consider outright in language right now, but no, I don't like the language in any of these.
So you think the language, and then kind of define what you mean by language. Is it it's not clear enough, or you think
enough.
maybe it's
not clear enough. I think some of it's deceptive, outright deceptive in the intent. One for sure is designed to allow the city to take money and not spend it, and that's just taking money out of people's pocket.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah, Joe?
As I expressed when this was brought up, once again, working collaboratively with a group of people, we had to thank the members of this committee that worked long and hard on it. But I did express during this item when it was brought up that I was not comfortable with any of the provisions that were in here, except for one, and that is to get us on at least a two-year financial plan. My goal is to get us on a 5-year plan, like other cities. And but that's the only one that I'm supportive specifically about, because that's one I've been advocating for a long time.
So if you go in the polls now, you're not sure you're going to vote on the others?
Not right now. That's the only one that I will support. That bill.
Did you vote today?
I do vote already.
You voted, so you already know how you did.
I think I gave you a pretty clear indication.
Okay, that's why I just want to make sure. I'm sorry I'm holding you over. They won't start the meeting without you, Joe. But those are a lot. Two of them are dealing with recalls, which we've seen a lot of attempts at that right now. A failed recall attempt, went to a vote, failed to recall the mayor. Another attempt to get a recall petition didn't make the numbers. There's a lot of complaining on both sides of how it was handled and the like. But there's been a general sense of uncivil actions, by the way, from everyone involved here. I don't want to single out one person. There's been a lot of accusations back in social media seems to rule the day versus not. I'm going to start here with you, Justin, on this question. When it comes to about civility, this is not about agreeing with everybody. It's about disagreeing, maybe politely, on that. But how do you see yourself as leading the way and bringing more civility into government if you're elected?
Can't control what doesn't happen, what happens outside the council room, right? But what you can do is write new rules where it's inappropriate to voice certain opinions or discuss certain things outside of chambers, especially publicly. So that's one rule I think you could write the language into the revised charter, if you may, where it's not acceptable to be on social media talking about any public business or any people that might be attacking you. It's just, hey, what stays in chamber as far as social communication and integrity needs to be left off social media. Don't be talking about people. Don't respond to people. That's your accepted role as a council member. It's unacceptable if you caught doing anything like that. You're reprimanded and possibly terminated, removed.
Unfortunately, you can't do that. In some cases, the law is very clear on this. The only way you get removed is by recall, or if you've broken the law and convicted. So Class B or higher.
Your council members can remove.
You can censure. You can censure and take them off committees or the like too. There's ways to do that.
There are laws. I don't know everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. So
No. I make it to clarify to
the point
folks.
is,
It'd be the way we'd like to do it. I know. But
I think you can definitely write new rules of conduct for the council members and people in the city as employees. And hey guys, I don't care what everybody else out in Marque is doing or posting or saying. You're not allowed to engage, otherwise you're reprimanded.
Yeah.
Flat out.
But sometimes, though, let me ask you: someone comes after you personally online and calls you corrupt, calls you a criminal. That's not an elected official. What do you do then?
We've all been faulty of something at one time or another,
Right.
and you just have to exercise restraint and character.
Yeah, maybe a thicker skin ordinance or something like
Yeah.
that. Joe, same question to you because I know you've seen this going on firsthand.
I bottom line is I share Justin's view. I ignore it all. You can call me whatever you want to. I really don't care. My ultimate responsibility is to the people that put me in the office. They know they can reach me 24/7. I've demonstrated that over and over again, and that's how I handle these things.
Cassandra, same question to you.
I can agree with not being, with them not engaging in it, but sometimes as a citizen, when the elected officials don't engage and don't let us know their side of the things, we tend to come up with our own conclusions. And I think that sometimes addressing that elephant in the room may be the best. A lot of our city council members don't even answer our emails or our messages. So we, as citizens, come to our own conclusions. So I think that maybe getting out there a little bit more instead of sitting behind a desk and actually getting out there and getting to talk to those citizens and actually speaking your side of the things, but in a very respectable manner, may be the best avenue to get that.
James, same question to you.
So your question is a little difficult because I do believe there are some city count or some Supreme Court cases that are coming up
Yeah, we got
On,
one. There we go. Bring it closer to your mic. Yeah.
on the First Amendment
Right.
and what can be said and done by elected officials. especially with censoring done by social media and such. So what I believe we can do is on a certified councilman page, yes, you can say, yes, this is your job, but on a personal page, you might have to leave them alone. And I will admit, I do every now and then like to go troll somebody. If you put something out there that I can go out there and throw a bomb in, yes, I will do it every now and then. And then I'll run away and then I'll just watch the comments because it makes me giggle deep down inside.
But you're not talking about trolling somebody who's talking about you. You're more along the lines of
just any comment that I can enjoy pulling. That way I can see what is going on out there. There's a little more to it than just trolling them, but we did it as a security aspect when I was in the Navy after 9/11 with groups out in the greater Pacific Northwest area. We'll put it that way. And we would go and intentionally throw bombs out at them to see what would happen so that we knew. But yes, the overall civility in Lamarque, we as whether we win our races or we don't, the bringing Lamarque back as a family, because right now they're fighting like a family. They're all fighting like siblings. They've known each other for 14 and 15, 20, 40 years. And the new guys, the new breaths of air that want to come in and make Lamarque and plant the tree for our kids to grow up under and to make it better for them when they are owning the houses that we bought. Those are the people that we need to actually put in office to make it better.
using the family reference, however, though, my sister never tried to get me recalled as her brother. That's the tough thing. And I'm not meaning it as a joke. I mean,
Right.
yeah, it goes on. It's gone beyond a sibling rivalry,
Right.
in many cases. So, all right. So we've dealt on this on a lot of things, but let me get into a question that comes up a lot, and I'm gonna ask you this last question to give you a chance to do your speech. Okay. So one question. Everyone kind of keep it concise in there. So I'll start with Joe. So, well, actually, we'll end with you, and then we can do they'll come back over here. So, James, let me ask you here: budget and taxes. You heard Joe mention this, the rollback of the tax rate, budget cuts and stuff. You got to make tough decisions coming in there on a budget priority. What are your top two things that have to be fully funded at the request of the department head?
The top two things are public safety, EMS, fire, and police must be funded, period. We must keep our citizens safe at all times. I don't care who you are or what you do. If we're not keeping our citizens safe, then we're eventually losing money by them leaving. And number two is bringing small business back to Lamarque, because I firmly believe that small business is the backbone of all small communities. You can bring in all the Targets and Walmarts and everything, but if you got the mom and pop shop that wants to make your town and your city better, you are a better community for it.
Gotcha. Cassandra, same question to you.
My two top priorities are water and infrastructure, the roads. That's part of making our community safe. Those roads, we've got some roads that really, really need some repairs done, and the water leaking and the water pressure. Those are some major issues for our community. Our children need water. They need good water pressure. They need these leaks to be fixed so that it doesn't cost us citizens more money. The roads that need to be fixed, and fixing those water leaks before we fix the roads is a major issue. So those are not that I don't agree with the police and the fire, but I think that those roads and that water is two of the main things that need to be repaired.
Justin, the same question. You got the two funding projects or fund departments that got it full of funding, whatever the department head asked for. What are those and why? Yeah.
I would have to agree with James. I mean, you obviously have to have public safety first and foremost. Otherwise, you can't respond and keep people safe and clean and fed. So that's after that. It's all your planning, your city planning, your infrastructure.
And Joe, moving forward, if reelected, what are going to be the ones that you say are the top?
I concur with the other one, because one of the ones One other one I want to add to the list. The city of Lamarque, which I really pushed before, needs to reevaluate its homestead allowance. We need to increase that to $40,000 instead of $20,000. I've been pushing and trying to get a consensus on that. I haven't been successful yet, and I want to see the increase like other communities have done, because we've seen an increased value in the properties that we have.
Gotcha.
And then take advantage of all the other reductions in taxes that are available to veterans and the disabled.
Gotcha. All right. So we'll stay with you here.
Very good.
Actually, are y'all okay with me breaking the order a little bit here? So Joe does, Councilman Compian doesn't need to get to a council meeting here. We scheduled this without taking that into consideration. My apologies for that. Up to 3 minutes, as I say, keep it about your campaign. No mentions of any others.
It's not a problem. I have no problems with it. Everybody knows me. I'm available anytime. TJ, you know that. We go back a long time. And you also know that I'm an intense advocate. One of the things that I bring, and which I hope to accomplish in this the second term, is that take advantage of the fact that now I'm part of the Houston Galveston Area Council of Governments, and also the representative to the Transportation Advisory Committee, which is dealing with billions of dollars. We didn't hit the I-45 corridor, but it has to do with allocations of monies that principally are going to Harris County and Houston right now. We need to make sure that our smaller communities, such as Lamarque and our other smaller communities, are here. We need to work collaboratively with other institutions. We have a safety infrastructure grant program that's out there right now. I've talked to President Nichols about that, collaborating with the college in terms of building some safe streets around and leading to the College of the Mainland from Texas City and Lamarque. Let's take advantage of all these opportunities. And last, I want Lamarque to be considered a community of innovation. We have always been able to get the job done, regardless of all the differences of opinion that we've had in this community. And I want us to become that community of innovation. And with that, thank you. I hate to leave, but I do have a council meeting to get to.
All right, and we hadn't gone out of order, actually. You were supposed to go first in this, so
Okay.
it worked out good. You can go for a leave, and
Thank you so much.
no one thinks you're running out on them for anyway. So Cassandra, you get to go next, actually, according to our order sheet here. So up to 3 minutes, ma'am, for you to make your final pitch to the voters.
So I would like more community programs. I would like to bring the community together more. It seems like we are very divided. And so I would like to be that bridge to bring them together. One of my main focuses is, like I said, the water pressure, the water leaks, the infrastructure. Those are major issues. I am all for small businesses coming, and I'm for any type of business that's coming. But we need to make Lamarque better for our citizens who are already here before we start worrying about bringing in more businesses and all of that. So we need that infrastructure. We need youth events. We need a youth community center. Our youth has nothing here for them. We have no community programs for our youth. We have no community center for our youth to go to. So those are some of the things that I would like to see come to Lamarque and make Lamarque better. I've heard a lot of things about how Lamarque used to be, and I would like to bring it back to how it used to be, a community that people want to be in.
That it? And so now, Justin, you have up to 3 minutes, sir, for your final say to the voters.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for your time today. I don't have a big grand campaign speech to give anybody. It's just maybe it's time for some new blood and reevaluate the big project with the new lens and new voices. Okay. Can't reinvent the wheel, but I can certainly try to help steer. And that's all I'm here to do.
Thank you, Justin. Wow. Y'all, I brag about this a lot when anyone gets under a minute on their answers. Y'all done really good. Normally, everyone takes the full 3 minutes. Now, come on, don't disappoint me. I'm just kidding. James Ross, up to 3 minutes, sir.
So, like my fellow competitors here, I want to bring Lamarque back to a one Lamarque. One team, one fight. Let's find a direction and follow it. We talked a lot about water. One thing that I would really like to look into is a reverse osmosis plant added on to our wastewater treatment so that we can recapture some of our water. If I can make fresh water out of with the reverse osmosis machine at 400 feet underwater, I can do it on land, and we can recapture some of what we're getting rid of. There's grants for that. Wichita Falls had one several years ago. I've already brought that up one time to some city council. Small business thing. It doesn't have to be in a building somewhere. It can just be a guy setting up in his garage selling stuff on eBay for all I care. As long as he's got his business license and he's paying his eBay's paying the sales tax to the city of Lamarque, anything can be a business, whether you're making pickles or you're selling sports cards. We just need to give the opportunity to our citizens to build it so that they can put a building in Lamarque and make it better for all of us at the end of the day.
Thank you, James. Thank you all for doing this. For those in the audience here, give them a hand, or at least for the candidates showing up and doing this tonight. This was a last minute thing for them as well. Reminder, early voting got underway today. We know at least one of the, did any of y'all vote today besides Joe? Okay, y'all got time, obviously. Goes through until Friday. There's not weekend voting here. And then May 1st and 2nd. This first part, it's 8 to 5, and then it's 7 to 7, May 1st and 2nd. And then on election day, 7 to 7 as well. For those of you watching on I-45 now, stay tuned. We're going to be restarting our live stream in a little bit, where we have the candidates running for College of the Mainland trustees coming up. I'm TJ Alts, I-45 now.